So I want to look now at the state of Jharkhand. And remember, the question is whether there is adequate anti-incumbency against the JMM, Congress, RJD state government in Jharkhand for the BJP to have a real shot at power, or did the arrest of Hemant Soren create adequate tribal sympathy for there to be a very strong pushback? So let's take a look at what the data suggests. And as you look at this data, in your mind, keep doing comparison with the level of anti-incumbency and the perception around the government's performance in Haryana. So when you compare, then you get a relative picture, which is what makes things interesting. So are you satisfied with the Chief Minister's performance? 27% say yes, 37% say not at all satisfied. 37% are not going to vote for Hemant Soren and for the India Alliance. In Haryana, this figure was 44. So the level of anti-incumbency in Jharkhand is less than the level of anti-incumbency faced by the BJP government in Haryana, but it is still fairly high. Those who are very satisfied are 27%, 33%. So a big chunk of voters are, we don't know, we could be here, we could be there. So they're somewhere in the middle and somewhere in between. Let's now come to the second question about the performance of Chief Minister Hemant Soren. He now has a Guruji kind of vibe around him. He's grown his hair, he's white now. He reminds the tribal people of Jharkhand of his father, Shibu Soren, the legendary tribal leader. 40% said they didn't like what Naib Singh Saini was doing. 35% are not at all satisfied. So again, quite a high number of people saying not at all satisfied, but lesser than the Haryana Chief Minister. Those who are very satisfied are 25%, which basically means just 1 in 4 voters are definitely coming towards Hemant Soren's alliance. But again, 30%, the bulk of votes, somewhere in the middle. Wherever this 30% goes really determines whether, if more of this 30% comes this way, then there is a chance that the Hemant Soren government has. If a bulk of this 30% goes this way, then it's game over for the India Alliance in Jharkhand. So this is where, if you look at the initial sets of data, the BJP can think, yes, we have a chance, we can make this happen. And the India Alliance strategists have to think through how they can prevent that from happening. Are you satisfied with the performance of the opposition leader? Let's take that question on our screen right now. So very few satisfied. Now that's the advantage. A, we don't really know who the opposition leader in Jharkhand is because there are camps within the BJP, so that's one. Secondly, very satisfied is only 15%. So they are quite unhappy, dissatisfied with Hemant Soren, but they're not jumping with joy with the BJP leadership either. So that's a very important observation there. Satisfied to some extent is just 17%. The biggest number there is 30%. So clearly anti-incumbency against the Hemant Soren government, but people not delighted with the opposition BJP and not very clear about whether they really want the BJP back. So that's really where things stand at the moment. What about the level of anti-incumbency against the MLA? Now, this is not just BJP MLAs or JMM MLAs, this is all MLAs. So when the question was asked, are you satisfied with your MLA? 35% are saying, nah, not at all satisfied. 31% are saying satisfied to some extent. 28% are very satisfied. So 3 out of 10 broadly would have a chance at re-election. 35% not at all satisfied. There's a lot of anti-incumbency there as well. So with that, let's just try and dissect this data. Rajdeep? Haryana showed very strong anti-incumbency. This is anti-incumbency not as strong, but Hemant Soren is not looking comfortable either.
The sense you get in both Haryana and Jharkhand, remember these are states where a state assembly election will be very tightly fought with a lot of independents. I don't get a ticket from one of the 2 major parties, I will contest as an independent. So all those numbers, that entire block which is not very satisfied is the one which will decide these elections, which is somewhat satisfied. The somewhat satisfied, those middle of the roaders decide small states. And therefore, I think, Yashwant, you're sticking your neck out in states like Haryana and Jharkhand.
I will stick my neck out.
So how are you sticking? In Haryana, you're very clear it's anti-incumbency. In Jharkhand, is it more a mixed picture with a possibility of a hung assembly?
I have 2 points to make on Jharkhand. Number one, when you look into the politics of Hemant Soren, you have to give him due credit that among all the dynasts and other those who inherited the political assets from their fathers. He is the only one so far who has taken their father's legacy ahead, the footprint of their support base. JMM against Hemant, under
like Naveen
Hemant Soren,
a bit like Naveen Patnaik.
Yeah, but like Naveen Patnaik, under Hemant Soren is bigger than the JMM was.
But people aren't very pleased with his performance either.
That's fine. Let me tell you one more thing. The 5 seats that they managed to pull off in the assembly election were the core of the core tribal seats. That's very important for you to understand. Lok Sabha elections. Okay, that means he is carrying the tribal vote mandate with him. Problem with the BJP is, and that's why when you were reading out the data of the opposition satisfaction, that there is a confusion, because God knows why BJP has not fully projected Babulal Marandi as their clear-cut chief ministerial face.
Why do you think they don't do it?
I don't know, because for the last 20 years in our tracker, by the way, you just said 22 years of our MOTN tracker.
No, but it's not like they haven't projected
No.
But that's been the problem for the last 20 years.
Can I ask you something?
I just say one data. In the last 20 years, regardless of which party he was in, independent, all alone, Babulal Marandi was consistently as the #1 most popular leader in Jharkhand, even when he was not
Why
in
don't they
power
fully
for almost
project
like
him?
2 decades.
See, I have covered the state quite closely in Jharkhand. The problem in Jharkhand is, first of all, they did incredible amount of work under Raghubar Das. Lot of infrastructure spending was there, best of the highways. For the last 5 years under Hemant Soren, the development of the state has actually gone into a stall. That is why you're seeing that there is anti-incumbency and all of that. But the problem is that BJP is still under the hold of Raghubar Das, who is moved in as the governor of Odisha. It was under his chief ministership that the BJP lost the last election. So still a lot of his loyalists are there who refuse to acknowledge Babulal Marandi as an undisputed leader.
No, but the BJP leadership should step up and say he's our chief ministerial face.
Raghubar Das still has a lot of sway in the central BJP. That's also an important
But
point.
the truth is, Babulal
Munda.
Marandi has always been sidelined, not now.
Always.
You see, if you look at it,
But
if
even
you
Arjun
go back
Munda.
to the
So
formation,
how many
Arjun
tribal
Munda
cases-
before Raghubar Das.
And Arjun Munda was a JMM import. Babulal Marandi was a
Old-style RSS
man.
RSS guy,
Correct,
popular guy. But I don't know
So
what
by
this is why.
backing up, what becomes important is the level of tribal consolidation in favor of the JMM. If the tribals stay fully consolidated, if they think Hemant Soren has been wrongly done in by the investigative agencies and the central government, then Jharkhand looks interesting. But judged purely by performance metrics, this government is on a sticky wicket.
Yeah, I think you're right. And if you look at the way the Lok Sabha results that Yashwant has projected in the sea water thing, clearly the BJP has the edge in that. In the sense it gets a little more...
No, so let me put that. We haven't given the data yet.
Just to complete the point that if you want to put it, then we can talk.
Okay, so let me show the data that Raj Chengappa is mentioning. Remember, we're not doing assembly projections. The question in the Mood of the Nation opinion poll, and I want that to be very clear so you don't misinterpret what's being said, is how would you vote in the Lok Sabha context right now? So if I take you through the projections for the state of Jharkhand, out of the 14 seats, the BJP had 8. Our data now projects that to go up to 10. The AJSU, the Students' Union of Jharkhand, had 1 that stays at 1. The Congress had 2 that comes down to 1. And the JMM had 3 that comes down to 2. So it's actually showing, unlike Haryana where they lost 1 seat, the BJP actually gaining ground in Jharkhand and the Congress actually losing some ground in Jharkhand.
So if you read it with what you had projected earlier, Rahul, in terms of the satisfaction levels of the government and everything else, and clearly anti-incumbency showing, it's also showing up in the, when you look at the Lok Sabha polls and what the projections of seawater is on this. But I think there are some X factors. Firstly, why is this election so important? Because this will be, if Haryana goes, for some reason, J&K begins to move away from the BJP in the first 2 rounds of elections, then you have Maharashtra and Jharkhand coming up very soon. That becomes very critical because if we have a series of losses, it will begin to impinge on the central government in terms of their credibility and their longevity in that. So that's one very important reason why we should look at Jharkhand so closely. The second thing I think, while the BJP seem to have a very clear edge, starting off with anti-incumbency, I think they scored a self-goal by getting Soren into a case that involved, I think, some 5 acres. If you ask any tribal there, and I was talking to my colleague, India Today colleague over there, he says The tribals believe that's their land. And you are putting someone in jail for 5 acres? I mean, he owns the entire tribal area. That's the sort of concept that they come in. So they've deeply offended the tribals, and you can see that in the results that in the Lok Sabha earlier, as well now under the projections, that the tribal vote, which is about 30%, will shift to him. So he starts with an advantage of that. Now the point is, what he was talking about, Marandi and others, he's not considered truly. That's one of the problems. He's not been accepted in that sort of mold as the Sorens have been in that sense.
But he's never been projected in the same fashion
That's
either.
correct. So I think we'll have to look at how he's able to broad base the sympathy wave that comes as a result of it, because the BJP shouldn't have done what it did, because subsequently the court then indicates that he has not, the verdict is not over, but does give him the sympathy vote. And let's see how much of that will start translating towards the other seat, the OBCs, the SCs and others.
The very fact in the last week we've had Champai Soren virtually rebel is a sign that the BJP recognizes that they need to do something.
No, but rebel unsuccessfully. It's not like he could take 6 MLAs with him.
So they couldn't do that. But the very fact that that attempt has been made is a clear sign the BJP knows they need to dent the tribal vote. You see, just as in Haryana, the BJP was hoping the Jat vote will be split and we will consolidate non-Jat. Here your hope is that you will consolidate the non-tribal vote firmly with you and the tribal vote will be factored. Now this is all politics, I think, which works when there is no major anti-incumbency. I think Jharkhand, the BJP has a very good chance even now, because nationally, even in the Lok Sabha polls, Rahul, the big picture was the BJP did best in states where they were not in power. You see, this is an anti-incumbency period across the country.
One small mistake that the BJP did in 2019 was not having a pre-poll alliance with AJSU. That also results in 5% swing here and there, and Sudesh Mehto still remains.
Mehto votes are very significant.
But what you were saying, Rajdeep, because even though Champai Soren unsuccessfully rebelled during the Lok Sabha, even before he was given the chief ministership chair, I was in the tribal belt, and after Hemant Soren, it is Champai Soren. He's a widely popular leader in the tribal belt. Will he
so they will
even a minor factor?
If you see what I can probably what will happen in Jharkhand, what happened in Chhattisgarh, there is a strong Congress government. We all thought that the Congress government would come back to power. They had a good leader. But then again, from my state, one person went there and they raised the tribal issue, that outsider and insider issue. Now in Jharkhand, that's happening. The Assam CM, he has been raising this Bangladeshi issue. Over there in Chhattisgarh, it was Christian versus tribal. Here now they are making it Bangladeshi. You can read it as Muslim versus tribal. So I think BJP understands that they don't have a leader, but they need to create a fear among the tribals that your own tribal leaders haven't been able to protect you. So I think that will play out.
We'll slip into a break right now. The big difference is in Haryana, the BJP is in power. Here they're in opposition, and it's the India alliance that needs to answer for what they've done and not done. And then there is the sympathy factor. So both those will play itself out.